It's no secret that
Right.
being a nurse executive right now
Yeah,
is incredibly demanding.
absolutely.
We're seeing alarming trends of burnout
Yeah.
and even some quietly crafting exit
Oh,
strategies,
wow.
a get me out of here mentality.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder, is there a way to lead in healthcare
Wow.
without burning out?
Yeah.
That's what we're diving into today
Okay.
with this article. The Executive's Compass, a guide for nurse executives charting a new path.
Hmm.
It's all about a new leadership framework
Right.
called the Executive's Compass.
What's interesting about this framework is that it doesn't just offer Band-Aid solutions for burnout.
Okay.
It suggests that by prioritizing your well-being as a leader,
Mm-hmm.
you can unlock a ripple effect of positive change that impacts your team, your organization,
Wow.
and ultimately patient care.
Okay, that's a bold claim. I mean, how can focusing on my well-being as a leader really transform an entire system? It sounds almost too good to be true.
Well, think of it this way.
Okay.
Traditional leadership models often emphasize reacting to crises and pushing through challenges,
Yeah,
which can lead to exhaustion and ultimately ineffectiveness.
right.
The Executive's Compass argues that
Uh,
this reactive approach is actually what's failing us.
mm-hmm.
Instead, it provides a roadmap for building a more sustainable and proactive leadership style,
Okay.
one that starts with the individual leader.
So it's kind of like saying you can't pour from an empty cup. Before you can lead others, you need to be grounded and centered yourself.
Exactly, and that's where this idea of a compass comes in.
Okay.
Imagine you're a sailor navigating a stormy sea.
Okay.
Without a compass, you're at the mercy of the waves, just reacting to whatever comes their way.
Right.
But with a compass,
Yeah.
you have a sense of direction, a way to navigate through the chaos and make intentional choices.
That's such a powerful analogy.
Yeah.
I can definitely relate to that feeling of being tossed around by the demands of healthcare.
Oh, absolutely.
So this compass,
Mhm.
is it like a set of rules?
What
What exactly are we navigating towards?
It's not about rigid rules,
Okay.
but rather about guiding principles.
Okay.
And the ultimate destination
Yeah.
is what the article calls thriving leadership,
Okay.
moving beyond just surviving to actually flourishing in your role.
And this thriving then impacts the entire healthcare system. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that connection.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Imagine a nurse executive who is grounded, energized, and leading with clarity and purpose.
Yeah.
Don't you think their team would feel that positive energy?
Right.
Wouldn't they be more inspired and motivated to do their best work?
Yeah, I can see that. Enthusiasm is contagious, right?
Mhm.
But how does that translate to something like, say, improving patient care?
Okay.
It still feels like a big leap.
Think of it as a chain reaction.
Okay.
When a leader thrives, their team thrives.
Right.
And when a team thrives, they're able to provide better care, make fewer mistakes,
Yeah.
and create a more positive experience for patients.
Got it.
It's all interconnected.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all fits together.
Good.
So how does this executive's compass actually work?
Well,
What are the nuts and bolts of this framework?
it's built on three core pillars: inner alignment, leadership presence, and systemic impact.
Okay.
Each pillar focuses on a different aspect of leadership, but they all work together to create a holistic approach.
3 pillars, huh?
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're constructing a strong foundation for better leadership.
Yes.
Where do we even begin with this construction project?
The framework suggests starting with inner alignment.
Okay.
It's the idea that you need to lead yourself before you can effectively lead others.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like putting on your own oxygen mask before assisting others on a plane.
Right.
You can't help others if you're struggling to breathe yourself.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
Inner alignment is about developing self-awareness,
Okay.
emotional intelligence, and resilience.
Okay.
It's about understanding your strengths and weaknesses, managing your stress,
Right.
and leading from a place of authenticity.
So it's not about being a perfect leader, but rather about knowing yourself and leading from a place of genuine strength.
Exactly.
Okay.
Think of a leader you admire.
Okay.
Chances are they possess a certain calmness and self-assuredness, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's inner alignment in action.
Right.
They're leading from a place of inner strength and stability.
Okay, I see how inner alignment lays the groundwork.
Yeah.
But what about actually leading a team,
Okay.
inspiring them, and getting them on board with your vision? That's where things get tricky, in my experience.
And that's where the second pillar, leadership presence, comes in.
Okay.
It's about cultivating the qualities that allow you to inspire and motivate others.
So is this about charisma?
Well,
That it factor that some people just seem to be born with?
it's not just about charisma.
Right.
It's about being authentic,
Right.
communicating clearly,
Okay.
making decisive choices,
Yeah.
and most importantly,
Yeah.
empowering your team.
Empowering your team. What does that look like in practice?
It's about creating a culture where every team member feels valued, heard,
Yeah.
and empowered to contribute their ideas and talents.
Okay.
Think about a time when you felt truly part of a team,
Mm-hmm.
where your voice mattered.
Right.
Didn't that make you want to go above and beyond?
Absolutely. When you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself and that your contributions are valued,
Hmm.
it's incredibly motivating.
Yeah,
So we've got inner alignment, which
yeah,
is about leading ourselves, and
yeah,
leadership presence, which is about leading others.
yeah.
What's the final piece of the puzzle?
The final pillar, systemic impact, zooms out to the bigger picture.
Okay.
It's about understanding that your leadership doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Okay.
You have the power to influence the systems and structures around you.
So it's not just about leading individuals, but about leading change within the entire system. That sounds pretty daunting, to be honest.
It can't feel that way,
Yeah.
but it's also incredibly empowering.
Okay.
Imagine being able to create a work environment where nurses feel supported, valued,
Right.
and empowered to provide the best possible care.
Okay.
That's the kind of systemic change this framework aims for.
Okay, I'm starting to see the potential here.
Yeah.
But how do you even begin to tackle something as big as systemic change?
It starts with understanding how systems work,
Okay.
identifying the levers for change,
Mm-hmm.
and then strategically using your influence to create positive shifts.
Right.
Think of it as a ripple effect.
Okay.
By changing the system,
Yeah.
you can create positive change that extends far beyond your immediate team.
So it's about thinking beyond just putting out fires and instead focusing on creating a more sustainable and supportive environment for everyone.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about shifting from a reactive to a proactive approach to leadership.
This is all starting to make sense. I can see how these three pillars, inner alignment, leadership presence, and systemic impact, work together to create a more holistic and effective approach to leadership.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, how does this framework differ from other leadership models I've heard about? What makes this executive's compass unique?
That's a great question. One of the things that sets this framework apart is its explicit focus on the well-being of nurse executives themselves.
Right, because if the leaders are burnt out and disillusioned,
Right.
it's going to be pretty difficult for them to lead anyone else effectively.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This framework recognizes that supporting nurse executives isn't just about preventing burnout.
Right.
It's about unlocking their potential to transform healthcare.
So it's about recognizing that their well-being is intrinsically linked to the well-being of the entire system.
Yes.
I'm really liking this holistic approach.
Oh,
But how does it compare to, say, the leader's compass or the pathway to excellence?
there are definitely some similarities.
Okay.
The pathway to excellence, much like the executive's compass, emphasizes creating a positive work environment and empowering nurses.
Mm-hmm.
And the leader's compass also shares some similarities in its focus on self-awareness and intentional leadership.
So there seems to be a growing recognition that effective leadership isn't just about managing tasks and making decisions.
Yeah,
It's about understanding yourself, connecting with others, and creating a shared vision.
absolutely. We're seeing a shift away from that traditional top-down model of leadership and towards a more collaborative and people-centered approach.
Okay.
And the executive's compass is a great example of this shift in action.
This is all so fascinating, but I have to admit, I'm
Sure.
still a little bit skeptical. It all sounds great in theory.
Right.
But how do we actually put this into practice? What are some tangible steps that nurse executives can take to start incorporating these principles into their leadership?
That's a fantastic question, and one that we'll definitely be exploring further.
Okay?
But first,
Yeah.
I think it's important to remember that this is a journey, not a destination.
Okay.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
So it's about finding what resonates with you and adapting these principles to your own unique context.
Precisely.
Okay.
But that being said,
Yeah.
there are definitely some key takeaways from this framework that can be applied by any leader who is looking to enhance their effectiveness and create a more positive and impactful work environment.
Okay, I'm ready for those takeaways.
Great.
What are some of the key things that our listeners should be thinking about as they reflect on this framework?
Well, I think one of the most important things to remember is that prioritizing your well-being as a leader isn't selfish.
Right.
It's actually essential.
Yeah,
You simply can't lead effectively if you're running on empty.
that makes a lot of sense. I know I've definitely experienced that feeling of burnout before, and it's hard to be inspiring or supportive when you're feeling depleted yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So whether it's practicing mindfulness, setting boundaries,
Okay.
or simply taking some time for yourself each day to recharge,
Mm-hmm.
make sure you're investing in your own well-being,
Okay.
You deserve it, and your team will thank you for it.
That's great advice, especially for those of us who tend to put everyone else's needs before our own. But what about the other pillars? What are some key takeaways for leadership presence and systemic impact?
For leadership presence,
Okay.
I think the most important takeaway is the power of authenticity.
Okay.
People can shot a fake a mile away.
Right.
So it's crucial to lead from a place of genuine integrity.
So it's not about trying to be someone you're not,
Right.
but rather about embracing your own unique strengths and leadership style.
Exactly. And remember,
Ah,
authenticity doesn't mean being perfect.
okay.
It's about being real,
Mm-hmm.
showing vulnerability,
Right.
and admitting when you don't have all the answers.
That's a great point. I think sometimes we feel like we need to have it all figured out as leaders, but that can actually create a barrier between us and our team. It's more powerful to be human and relatable.
Absolutely. And when it comes to systemic impact,
Yeah.
I think the key takeaway is that you have more power to create change than you might realize.
Okay.
Don't underestimate your ability to influence the systems and structures around you.
So it's about thinking beyond just managing your team
Right?
and focusing on how you can make a positive impact on the organization as a whole.
Precisely. And it starts with understanding how systems work.
Okay.
Think of it like a web.
Okay.
Everything is interconnected.
Right.
So by identifying the key leverage points,
Mm-hmm.
you can create ripple effects of positive change that extend far beyond your immediate sphere of influence.
Okay, I'm getting a clearer picture of how this all works together.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, I'm still a little bit stuck on the idea of systemic change.
Okay.
It feels so big and overwhelming. Where do you even begin?
Well, one practical step is to start by identifying one specific area where you'd like to see improvement within your organization.
Okay.
Maybe it's addressing the nursing shortage,
Okay.
improving communication between departments, or creating a more supportive and equitable work environment.
Okay, so choose a focus. Then what? Do you just start making demands?
Not quite.
Okay.
Remember,
Yeah.
creating lasting change requires a strategic approach.
Okay.
It's not about forcing your ideas on others.
Right.
It's about collaborating and building consensus.
Okay.
So once you've identified your focus,
Right.
the next step is to gather data,
Okay.
talk to stakeholders,
Mm-hmm.
and develop a clear and compelling case for change.
So it's about doing your homework and really understanding the problem before jumping in with solutions.
Exactly. And it's about building relationships and collaborating with others.
Mm-hmm.
Systemic change rarely happens in isolation.
Right.
It requires buy-in and support from across the organization.
This makes me think about the need for strong communication skills, not just with your team, but with leaders across different departments.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Communicating effectively is crucial for creating alignment,
Mm-hmm.
building consensus, and
Right.
ultimately driving change.
So it's not just about having a great vision. It's
Mhm.
about being able to articulate that vision in a way that inspires and motivates others to get on board.
Precisely. And remember,
Yeah?
effective communication is a two-way street.
Right.
It's also about listening carefully to understand the perspectives and concerns of others.
This all makes so much sense. I'm starting to see how these seemingly disparate pieces, self-awareness, leadership presence, and systemic impact, actually fit together to create a powerful framework for leading positive change.
Exactly. And one of the most exciting things about the Executive's Compass is that it recognizes the unique position of nurse executives to advocate for change,
Okay.
both within their organizations and on a broader scale.
So it's about leveraging your leadership role to create a ripple effect of positive change that extends far beyond your immediate team.
Absolutely. Nurse executives have a deep understanding of the challenges facing the healthcare workforce and the expertise to develop innovative solutions.
Mm-hmm.
The Executive's Compass provides a framework for channeling that expertise and passion into meaningful action.
I love that. It's about empowering nurse executives to become true agents of change. But let's be honest, the healthcare system can feel incredibly resistant to change. How do you stay motivated and persistent in the face of those challenges?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
And one that I think a lot of leaders struggle with.
right.
It's important to remember that change rarely happens overnight.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time, persistence,
Yeah.
and a willingness to embrace setbacks as learning opportunities.
So it's about having a long-term vision and not getting discouraged by short-term obstacles.
Exactly. And it's about building a strong support network of colleagues, mentors, and coaches who can offer encouragement and guidance along the way.
That's a great reminder. We don't have to do this alone. There's power in community and shared learning. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that's been on my mind throughout this conversation.
Okay.
The article focuses on nurse executives, but I can't help but think that these principles could be applied to leadership in any field.
I absolutely agree. While the context may differ,
Okay.
the core principles of the executive's compass, inner alignment, leadership presence, and systemic impact are relevant to anyone who is looking to lead more effectively and create positive change.
So whether you're leading a team of nurses, engineers, or entrepreneurs,
Right,
these principles can help you become a more grounded, authentic, and impactful leader.
precisely. It's about tapping into your own inner compass and using it to navigate the complexities of leadership in any field.
I love that. It's a reminder that leadership is not just about title or position. It's about something much deeper.
Yeah,
It's about who you are and how you choose to show up in the world.
beautifully said. And I think the executive's compass provides a roadmap for cultivating that inner strength and using it to create positive change in the world, no matter what your field of influence.
This conversation has been so insightful. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on leadership and the power we all have to create positive change.
Sure.
But I also want to acknowledge that this is a lot to digest.
Right.
It's easy to get excited about these ideas, but actually putting them into practice can feel daunting.
Right.
What advice do you have for listeners who are feeling inspired, but maybe a little bit overwhelmed about where to start?
That's a great point
Yeah.
and a very common feeling.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is to remember that you don't have to do everything at once.
Okay.
Start small.
Okay.
Choose one principle that resonates with you and focus on incorporating it into your leadership style.
So it's about taking small, consistent steps rather than trying to overhaul everything overnight.
Exactly. Remember,
Yeah.
this is a journey, not a destination.
Okay.
And be patient with yourself.
Right.
It takes time to develop new habits and ways of leading.
That's such reassuring advice. And it reminds me that we're all works in progress. There's no such thing as a perfect leader, and that's okay. It's the willingness to learn and grow that matters most.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Okay.
Seek out mentors, coaches, or even just supportive colleagues who can offer guidance and encouragement along the way.
This has been such a rich and thought-provoking conversation. I feel like I've gained a whole new toolkit for navigating the complexities of leadership.
Good.
But before we wrap up, I'm curious to hear from our listeners.
Okay.
What's resonating with you most from the Executive's Compass? What are you feeling inspired to do differently in your own leadership journey? Share your thoughts and insights on our social media channels. We'd love to hear from you.
And as we transition to our final segment,
Okay?
I want to leave you with a question to ponder. If you were to apply one element of the executive's compass in your own professional life,
Yeah,
which would you choose and why?
that's a great question to reflect on. And it really gets to the heart of what this framework is all about.
Right.
It's not just about understanding these concepts in our heads.
Mhm.
It's about actually applying them in our lives to become more effective and impactful leaders.
I couldn't agree more. Knowledge without action is like a compass without map.
Right.
It might point you in the right direction,
Yeah.
but it won't get you where you need to go.
So how do we bridge that gap between knowledge and action?
Well,
It can still feel overwhelming to think about tackling all three pillars of this compass at once.
you're absolutely right. And that's why I think it's so important to remember that this is a journey, not a race.
Okay.
You don't have to do everything perfectly from day one. Instead, focus on progress, not perfection.
That's such a relief to hear. So let's say I'm a nurse executive listening to this and feeling totally inspired but also completely swamped. What's one small, concrete step I can take today to start incorporating the executive's compass into my leadership?
That's a fantastic question. It really depends on which pillar resonates most with you. If you're feeling burnt out and overwhelmed, a great place to start is with inner alignment.
Okay.
Try carving out just 15 minutes each day for self-reflection.
15 minutes, that seems doable even in the midst of a chaotic schedule.
Yeah.
What would that look like in practice?
It could be as simple as sitting quietly, noticing your breath,
Okay.
and observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could use that time to journal,
Okay.
meditate,
Yeah.
or take a walk in nature.
Right.
The key is to disconnect from the external demands and reconnect with yourself.
I can see how that could be incredibly grounding and restorative, especially for someone who's constantly in go mode. It's like
Yeah,
hitting the pause button and giving yourself permission to just be.
exactly. And as you become more attuned to your inner landscape,
Mm-hmm.
you'll start to notice patterns in your thoughts and behaviors that might be contributing to your stress or burnout.
Right.
From there,
Yeah.
you can start to develop strategies for managing those challenges more effectively.
So it's about becoming more aware of your own needs and limits and then taking proactive steps to protect your energy and well-being.
Precisely. And remember, setting boundaries is not selfish.
Okay.
It's actually essential for sustainable leadership.
Right.
Think of it this way. If you're constantly running on empty,
Mm-hmm.
you'll eventually hit a wall.
Right.
But if you prioritize your own well-being,
Yeah.
you'll have more energy and resilience to lead effectively over the long term.
That makes so much sense. It's like filling up your own tank before trying to fuel everyone else's.
Right?
Okay, so that's a great starting point for inner alignment.
Yeah.
What about someone who's feeling more drawn to the leadership presence pillar?
Okay.
What's a practical step they can take to enhance their communication and team empowerment skills?
One of the most powerful things you can do is to practice active listening.
Okay.
It sounds simple, but it's actually a skill that requires conscious effort and attention.
I can definitely relate to that. Sometimes I find myself listening with the intent to reply rather than truly understanding what the other person is saying. What does active listening look like in practice?
It's about really focusing on the person speaking both their words and their body language
Mm-hmm.
without interrupting or jumping in with solutions.
Right.
It's about asking clarifying questions to make sure you understand their perspective
Okay.
and reflecting back what you're hearing to ensure you're on the same page.
So it's about putting aside your own agenda and truly being present with the other person.
Yes.
I can see how that would create a sense of trust and openness,
Right.
which is so essential for building strong relationships.
Absolutely. When people feel heard and understood,
Mm-hmm.
it creates a foundation for collaboration and innovation.
Okay.
They're more likely to share their ideas,
Right.
take risks,
Yeah.
and contribute their unique talents.
Okay, so active listening is a great tool for enhancing leadership presence. What about for someone who's passionate about creating systemic change? How can they translate that passion into concrete action?
That's a great question. I would recommend starting by identifying one specific area where you'd like to see improvement within your organization.
Okay.
It could be anything from addressing staff shortages
Okay.
to improving communication between departments
Mm-hmm.
or fostering a more inclusive and equitable work environment.
Okay, so choose a focus, and then what? Do you just start writing memos and demanding change?
Not quite. Remember, lasting change requires a strategic approach.
Right.
It's not about forcing your ideas on others.
Okay.
It's about collaborating and building consensus.
Right.
So once you've identified your focus,
Mm-hmm.
the next step is to gather data,
Uh-huh.
talk to stakeholders,
Yeah.
and develop a clear and compelling case for change.
So it's about doing your research, understanding the perspectives of those who will be impacted by the change, and building a strong foundation for your advocacy efforts.
Exactly. And it's about being patient and persistent.
Right.
Systemic change rarely happens overnight. It takes time, dedication,
Yeah.
and a willingness to navigate challenges and setbacks along the way.
That's such an important reminder. It's easy to get discouraged when things don't move as quickly as we'd like, but it's important to keep the long-term vision in mind.
Absolutely. And remember,
Yeah.
you don't have to do this alone.
Okay.
Seek out mentors,
Yeah.
connect with other leaders who are passionate about similar issues,
Mm-hmm.
and build a support network that can help you stay motivated and inspired.
This has been such an inspiring conversation. I feel like I've gained a whole new toolkit for navigating the complexities of leadership, not just in healthcare, but in any field. And most importantly, I'm walking away with a renewed sense of hope and possibility. It's easy to get bogged down by the challenges we face. But the Executive's Compass reminds us that we all have the power to create positive change.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's about tapping into our inner compass,
Mm-hmm.
leading with authenticity and purpose,
Right.
and collaborating with others to create a more just and equitable world.
So to our listeners, we encourage you to explore the Executive's Compass further and consider how its principles can guide you on your own leadership journey. Remember, leadership is not a destination.